Good afternoon. We appreciate we're a couple of minutes late starting at this point, but I'd like to welcome everybody on behalf of both the University of Sheffield and Sheffield Hallam University to this MD's Club virtual session. For the avoidance of doubt, I'm Alex Prince. I'm the Head of Innovation Services for Sheffield Hallam University. But this is very much something which both institutions have put together for us all this afternoon. A few sort of housekeeping things just to flag up right at the start. In terms of sort of hygiene rules, if you're not talking, please remain on mute and sort of don't too much make noise in the background because it can result in feedback and that kind of thing. It's clearly a chat function where you're very welcome to post questions either to the speaker or generally during the presentation. We will try and get questions that are specific answered by speakers if we can, if we have time for that kind of thing. But if not, we will extend the Q&A to the speakers after the event and see if there are any specific answers that need to be picked up. You can actually use the chat function for networking on a one-to-one basis as well. So you can send to individuals in the chat box and to say hello to people or to ask specific questions of individuals, etc., etc. In case there's any issues, just for the avoidance of doubt, again, we are recording this session. It will become available through, we'll send it out after the event, and I think post it on the website for the MD's Club as well. Standard housekeeping things are, there's no planned fire alarms. Please feel free to exit at a safe walking pace should one go off in your particular locality, etc. We will also be asking for feedback on the event via a poll at the end of the session. Just a very brief preamble from me, you'll be glad to hear. Both universities have, in keeping with much of society and the globe at this point, have shut their office and at very little notice, the same as lots of companies, got teams working from home, furloughed some staff, and we're all trying to work out, I suppose, what the future looks like, find ourselves in quite uncharted territory. It's difficult for all of us, I'm sure, in different ways. I don't need to rehearse those kinds of things about balancing normal life and family life and professional life to anybody. We're all in the same boat on that one. But I guess the point really from the MD's Club point of view and from the theme of supporting and collaborating with businesses during the coronavirus pandemic is that we've organised this in the spirit of support, but also in a sense of normality. So despite shutting our actual physical buildings and facilities, both universities are still extremely active as it happens, working with businesses, the public sector. And what we've really done is shifted how we are working and refocused some of what we're doing in the light of the COVID situation. So the purpose of what we're doing today really isn't to show off about what we've done. The key message really that I would like everybody to take away is that both universities are being flexible and adaptive, and we're quite prepared to do more. And we will learn and shift as lockdown eases and as society opens up again and the economy starts to move again, recognizing that all of us need to keep doing that for the foreseeable future. And we're very prepared to help with that from a university point of view. So in terms of what the speakers are going to talk about today, it's very much on that sort of basis of how we can help and the kinds of to spark ideas around what we've been doing and how we might be able to work with businesses going forward. As I say, please ask questions as we go or contact us outside of that through the website and the various contact details. To that end, I'm going to hand over at this point to our first speaker, who I hope is ready. I'm assuming he is at this point. So can I please welcome Dr. Ronald Dyer, who's from Sheffield University's Management School, and he runs their executive professional education program. Ronald, are you there and are you ready?
I am.
Excellent.
So
I will hand over to you now then.
Thank you. So I'm just going to leave my camera off because for bandwidth issues. So basically, welcome everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to speak with everyone today in these what I consider to be not only just trying but different times. So I'm going to not spend as much time on the presentation as I'm going to spend with you on Q&A, so I'm going to try and keep this as short as possible. So basically, we are the Executive and Professional Education Department of the University of Sheffield's Management School, and our remit is basically all of the external facing education that happens, what I would say, post the formal learning that within the linear school system. So we're about basically the people who are either employed or looking for movement within their current employability situation. And to that end, we have basically a better understanding of what's happening in terms of the employability market, and also supporting that through a unique blend of products and services that we have developed over the last 3 or 4 years. So we're still relatively new, but we've had an excellent track record in that respect. And I'll go through the slides now, starting with the first. Right, so basically, we consist of a team of academic practitioners and professional services people that run across several different areas, from food all the way down to the nonprofit and the voluntary sector, with different and varying years of experience in those areas. And it's a strong team. About roughly there are 23 people in the executive education unit, with 5 on the professional services side and the rest on the academic side. And basically we've had some people have been part of the university system and have moved over from the core management school, versus some that have actually joined us within the last 24 months. I myself have only been there since February last year. So as I said, we have a strong footing in terms of these areas, and I will get in a little bit more to some of the specifics of what we've done with industry along some of these target areas that have been identified. So what do we offer? So we offer a suite of qualifications aimed at senior managers, also short courses and what we like to call custom or co-created programs, as well as government programs and tests. And I'll get into details on those, starting with the government programs and tests. So just recently, and she's actually in the room, our head of short courses, Carol Bean, we've just finished a collaboration with CABS in terms of looking at some of the business basic requirements with a group of businesses within the Sheffield and greater area to support them in terms of looking at their performance, etc. Another program that we did last year that I was actually directly involved in, we worked with the local enterprise partnership with Sheffield Regional Council to work towards developing capacity around management thinking and management education with several companies through a LEP funded initiative, which was quite successful. We had about 25 companies taking part. And so far, we've had about 4 or 5 of them who are interested in looking at different things that they would like to do in terms of building capacity. Some of those things include things along the area of business models, technology improvement, finance, and also leadership, particularly now one of the big ticket items, leadership with a wellness component, because we understand that everyone's trying to balance between home life and work life from a different perspective now, especially over the last 2 months. In terms of the short course program, they're pretty much standard for the time being, but it doesn't mean that we can't do custom programs. And by standard, what I mean is that we basically offer a suite of standard programs along, again, leadership, accounting and finance, things like data analytics, and some stuff around strategy. And these help not only to bolster the existing rigidity of our SMEs, but also to help to work as feeder programs into our core programs, which we call our qualification programs. And those consist of our MSCs, EMBAs, certificates, and diploma programs. So let's talk a little bit about some of the the programs that we have that are more full or traditional masters and EMBA programs. So we've got a suite of MSc programs that are focused on strategic leadership. And there are 2 routes to this program. There's an apprenticeship route. As I think most of you would be aware, we have access to the apprenticeship levy for businesses making over 3 mil. And basically this allows you to onboard your staff into this program, 2 years with a 6-month endpoint assessment, because it's also branded with the Chartered Management Institute. So it's not just doing the MSc and the dissertation, it's also about an additional component which demonstrates competencies from a strategic leadership standpoint with a professional designation. And that's very important because it's a slightly different model from a traditional MSc, where you are pretty much coming in to understand and learn the theory behind management and strategic leadership. This is predominantly about practice as well. So there's the theoretical underpinning, but there's also the other side of it, which is basically that you have to demonstrate continued competence to meet that apprenticeship while still working within your own organization. The other one that we have basically is, I'll come back to this after, is our open EMBA programs and our advanced manufacturing programs. And the open program is pretty much what it says on the label, in that it's one of our flagship EMBA programs in terms of it's open to enrollment from anyone. And it basically follows the structure of most EMBA programs, in that it has got all the thought components as well as the dissertation. And basically there is also the option to do, again, the apprenticeship component of that program with the 6 months add-on that is part of you can take advantage of through the levy. The other program that supports that as well is the advanced manufacturing. And this is slightly more specialist in nature because it focuses mainly on organizations that are in an advanced manufacturing setting. So for instance, we have several people coming from within the AMRC who take part of this program, as well as companies like Boeing, etc., who have either taken part or have an interest in these programs because of the advanced manufacturing nature. Again, they all have an apprenticeship or non-apprenticeship component, which is the good thing about it. So you can either do it as a straight 2-year program, or you can do it as a 2-year program with the additional component of the endpoint assessment, which is what the EPA stands for, and taking the apprenticeship route and also taking advantage of the apprenticeship levy. And this is something we strongly encourage. Now, one of the things I'll just make a note of is, without saying too much, is that there will be changes to the apprenticeship levy sometime later this year. So basically, we don't know what they are yet. So if your company is interested, or you have employees who might be interested in doing this, you need to be looking out for whatever announcements that they are, or if you're contacting us, we will inform you of what the changes are at that point in time. But right now, we don't have a clear idea of how they're going to change those programs. So it's just something that you need to signpost in terms of your thinking. It may be that the open MBA is better for you than the apprenticeship because you don't want to do that additional component. So a little bit more on the EMBA programs. It is basically 13 modules, 10 credits each, one 50-credit module, which is the dissertation at the end, with 7 master classes. And what the master classes are specialist classes that are not necessarily covered during the taught tuition part of the program, but allow us to have experts come in and really give you what we classify as a master class in a specific area. It's all taught modularly. So basically you're coming in for 3 days a month, and basically you would then have about a month's break between each one before you go to the next module. And of course there are guest lecturers. Where it differs from the apprenticeship program is that the apprenticeship EMBAs would have an add-on onto this of the endpoint assessment, which is another 6-month period where you have another project that you do, but that's very specific to your industry or sector. So when we talk about what you will learn, there's a good balance between quant and qual. So we do cover all the stuff like leadership, change, etc., but we also cover all the other things like analytics, economics, accounting and finance, and also in our master classes, things that we cover: project management, ethics, risk, storytelling for your business to understand how to do your story, etc., and how to present the information that you have. going back to the MSCs, as I promised a minute. So basically, this sort of gives you an idea of what I will now say was supposed to happen ideally for 2020 into 2021. But of course, COVID has put a spoke in that wheel. So you always start off with a study skills module. Then you have foundations of professional practice and leadership, which help you to start to curate and think about what it means to be a leader. What are the requirements you have, looking and understanding the gaps, and then flowing through the relevant courses that you have here until you get to the end point, which is where you start to look at your dissertation. So this is pretty much standard across all the EMBA and MBA programs, and the MSCs are slightly different because whereas the EMBAs are pitched at people who are more senior in the organization, the MSCs are pitched for emerging leaders. So basically someone who is moving into a managerial role for the first time and wants the theory and practice to support them. That's the difference between the two programs that you need to note. So again, I've outlined how they work here, and the apprenticeship, as I said, you can find funding, your organization can find funding under the levy, and these would be the requirements in terms of completion. And then the open program, which is roughly 6 months shorter, is usually self-funded. Now, bear in mind that the open programs also qualify for the tuition loan that applies to all postgraduate programs now. So if you're doing it as an individual, you can basically do the same thing. And again, the next start date with a question mark will be September 2020, but we're not sure what's going on at this point in time. So basically, I would say that, if you have interest or once you've decided what you want to do, it would be best to reach out to us and have somebody sort of, guide you through what the next steps and the processes are. So I'm going to stop there and I'm going to take some questions. One of the things I want to say before I actually start answering any questions is that we have, given the current climate, I strongly suggest that people particularly take advantage of the short course delivery, because I think there's a lot of upskilling, reskilling, and retooling that needs to be done. So I'm open for questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Ronald. I guess open to the floor in a sense. Do anybody have any questions? I noticed that Anne's just posted about the ability to use the levy. Ronald, is that something that aware of people have used previously? Sorry, not the levy, the skills bank.
Yes, actually, we've got a standing relationship with the skills bank. And we're trying to develop a better relationship because part of what we did under the LEP was funded partially under the skills bank. So yes, it is possible to use it. I'm not sure how the details vary now based on with everything that's going on with COVID, but it's certainly something we can explore.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, and then says skills advisors can help. I was about to ask Anne if she had anything further to say on that. Does anybody else have any further questions? Okay, well, in the absence of questions, I will take silence as golden in that case, and move us onward to Kevin Kerrigan from Sheffield University. Oh, sorry, we now have a question. Let's pop back if that's all right.
Yep, sure. Probably in a blended format. I know that we are currently preparing for online in September. But we're still waiting predominantly the university's final decision on what that's going to look like, because given that we will have space constraints with regards to social isolation, etc., within the classroom, there's a possibility that we may have to do some online and then some small group tutorial stuff, but we really don't know what it will look like yet. But we are currently working on the development of content for September in an online format, just in case. So the answer is that yes, we will definitely have it ready, but we'll just be waiting to see what the government and the university has to say.
Okay, thank you very much. As I was in the process of saying, I think we'll move on to Kevin, who is Provost Chancellor for Business and Enterprise at Sheffield University. Kevin, are you there? Kevin.
Right. Hi, Alex. Hi, everyone. I don't know if you can see me yet. Can you see me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So I think you have a choice of looking at me, if you want to, just by clicking on my small thumbnail on the screen, or I'm going to try and see if I can share a presentation with you. So I've got on the screen a presentation called Sheffield City Region Future Economy, How Universities Can Help. So Alex, can you just confirm whether you can see that?
I can't see that, no. Just bear with us a minute and we'll try and fix that. Hang on. There you go. That should now be up.
Great. So you've got a choice. You can either look at me if you want to. Why you'd want to do that, I don't know. Or you can look at the slide just by clicking on the icon on the screen. I'm going to speak for maybe 10 minutes just to do, I think, 3 things. One, frighten everybody, I guess, if you can be any more scared than you are already about the economy. Then hopefully lift our spirits by saying that we've got it all in hand, and then thirdly indicate ways in which the university and the universities of this region can contribute towards the future economy, reimagine the future economy of Sheffield City Region. So with the frightening stuff first, I wanted to move on to some alarming statistics. Some of you will be all too familiar with these and have become much more of an economist than you were previously, but they are quite alarming. The world economy is forecast by the IMF to shrink by 6.3% compared to the original forecast. So plus 3.3% down to plus 3% down to minus 3.3%. That 24% of the UK workforce is at risk, and 50% of all of that risk earn less than £10 per hour. So as we're becoming much more acutely aware, the predominant economic impact and indeed the health impact is falling on poor sections of society. Then the third frightening statistic is that nearly a quarter of all businesses were closed or paused between April the 6th and the 19th, so that 2-week period. And of the rest of those businesses that remained open, much more than half saw revenue falls, some really significant revenue falls. So all that data comes from the Office of National Statistics. About a quarter of the workforce has been furloughed by 800,000 firms, and that's probably a couple of weeks ago, that data. So things may have moved on since then, but that's the latest official data that we've got. If you think that the government is also paying obviously the salaries of all public sector workers, we're probably looking at the government paying, a Conservative government incidentally, paying about half of the staff, half of the workforce in the UK at the moment. Who would have ever thought that we would have got to such a situation? The next thing is that, as you will not be surprised by, retail footfall very significantly down. Of course, food footfall is up, food spend is up, but otherwise pretty much everything is down. Unemployment is on the rise, so 2.5 million universal credit claims were made between March and May, and the forecast from the Bank of England suggests that in Q2 this year, unemployment is set to rise to 9%. So that's a 5% increase on where we were prior to this crisis. All of the efforts that the government is making, the interventions, the furloughing, the support for small and larger businesses, the support for self-employed and so forth, is an unprecedented intervention, but it's going to cost a huge amount of money. And the OBR reckons that it's going to be about a £300 billion deficit over this spend. Thankfully, at the moment, borrowing is very cheap, but it does mean that we're going to have a massive deficit for a very long period of time. And how we address that will become, an issue as we go forward. There are some Sheffield City Region specific issues just to mention in terms of the problems as we move from a health crisis into an economic crisis. The at-risk jobs, there are about 190,000 at-risk jobs in Sheffield City Region, according to the Centre for Cities, and 90,000 of those are here in Sheffield itself. Then of the at-risk sectors, there are three perhaps particularly prominent for this region. So manufacturing, construction, and higher education. So clearly those three areas are very significant to the Sheffield City Region economy. And if we just take higher education for a moment, which is obviously the area that I'm much more familiar with, the 60,000 students that there are in Sheffield between the two universities and the college account for a very big chunk of the spend. They account for about 10% of the population of the city, but also a very big chunk of the spend that happens in the city. And as the previous speaker was indicating, that we are working on an assumption that delivery next year is going to largely be online. So if you're a student that is thinking of going to one of the Sheffield universities at the moment, are you going to buy accommodation in Sheffield and move to Sheffield and live in Sheffield for a year if the vast majority of your teaching is going to be via a laptop in your bedroom that could be anywhere in the world? The third area for vulnerability is on international trade. So a very significant lockdown of international travel has hit trade, and we are an exporting area. Another significant point is that we know that there will be a massive loss of international students next year, and the estimates are varying, but they all anticipate more than half of international students not coming to the UK next year. So that very significant international trade, because that's what international students are, they're an export, is going to be very significantly hit next year. And then lots of vulnerable towns in the Sheffield City region, which we need to be aware of. So what can I say that might cheer us up slightly? It is that the Mayor's office is onto developing a Sheffield City Region recovery plan, and there is a lot of work taking place. Up to the 8th of June, this work will happen on immediate relief for the period up to a year, on recovery from years 1 to 3, and then long-term resilience post 3 years. There are a number of mooted themes, and I've listed some of them there for you. They're obviously really important. Skills, employment, education, and training, I think, probably being one of the most important for this region. The built environment and transport, there will be a huge amount of spend in the city region on active travel over the next few years, and the way that we shape that and the way that we help that spend to reshape our urban landscape, so the way that we interact with the urban landscape, the way that we move around the cities and towns of the region, the way that we interact with work and other aspects of our lives is going to be crucial. I did see the question pop up there. Yes, this is the Dan Jarvis work that's taking place at the moment. How can universities contribute to this endeavour? One way, of course, is to critique, to feedback, to offer ideas for long-term planning policy. And we are doing that. Both universities are contributing to that, as are other city anchor institutions. But there are more specific ways, and I'll mention just a few over the next 3 slides. First of all, universities can adapt existing projects to enable more support for economic recovery. The Sheffield Innovation Programme is a partnership between the 2 universities in Sheffield and the Sheffield City Region, and there's a lot of work taking place to repurpose the interventions there to focus on COVID relevant interventions. A couple of examples that I can offer is helping businesses pivot to online provision and helping businesses that are increasingly reliant upon postal delivery of services to rethink packaging support. A second example is a Scale Up 360 project, an ERDF project that's about high growth businesses in the region, refocusing that to focus on COVID adaptation, so business growth agendas, human resource changes, and access to finance. And the third one is Advanced Wellbeing Accelerator. So the University Enterprise Zone at Attercliffe has an Advanced Wellbeing Accelerator in there. So work taking place to build momentum around potential growth opportunities arising for the region out of this crisis. Examples being medtech and also digital health innovations. And I hope at some point they can help us develop a way of the dentist sorting out my toothache online, because it's a very significant issue for me at the moment. Next thing is developing new initiatives. So health workforce. Who would have thought that that our final year students would, well before they graduated, have become workers in the NHS? But about 600 nursing and allied health students are being deployed into the NHS and care workforce. And similarly at the University of Sheffield, early graduation of medical students to start their careers early to help with the current health workforce issues. But then also trying to move to looking at businesses and helping them understand how they can navigate their way through turbulent change. So a series of Hallam modules have been developed to our webinar series, 4 one-day CPD workshops, and senior team effectiveness programs. My colleague Vincent Traynor is in the audience, and do feel free to connect directly with him via the chat if you want to find out more about that program. It is being offered via the Sheffield Innovation Programme to clients of the SIP, and we would look to offer those more widely subsequently. And then subsidised internships. So Santander has kindly supported the university, and we've also funded ourselves a payment to enable graduates to work with Sheffield City Region businesses on an internship basis to help with post-COVID planning and delivery. My last main point is one wider engagement. So you may be aware of the Hallam iLab incubator. Again, I noticed that my colleague Caroline Nouvelon is in the audience. She leads the iLab activity, and there's a great incubation team there that are helping entrepreneurs navigate this crisis. And somebody said that that healthcare workers are the heroes of the health crisis, and maybe entrepreneurs could be the heroes of the recovery. And I do think there's something about that for Sheffield City Region to rethink itself as a startup city coming out of this. There's a digital boost bid with Sheffield City Council, Barnsley and Barnsley College to develop diagnostic skills for businesses, and then digital clinics to help them with detailed activity. And then thinking about this crucial, potentially lost group of graduates in 2020, they'll be going back to Barnsley and Rotherham and Doncaster and Sheffield towns and cities to find a completely changed economic environment. There's a big risk that they end up being unemployed, underemployed. And there's an opportunity, I think, to seize a link between this group of graduates who have got great skills, great enthusiasm, great creativity, and rebuilding economies and communities, helping them develop employability skills, and at the same time helping businesses and economies recover. So in conclusion, I think the Sheffield City region will be able to thrive in the long term. And I think that it's really important that we look at a long-term trajectory here. And the long-term trajectory always shows that recessions, depressions are overcome and we get through to the other side. We need to take this opportunity to reimagine what type of city and city region this ought to be. And I think that universities can play a really creative and practical role, both in that short-term activity that I've just been through, but also longer-term thinking to help us become a more imaginative, creative, together, and sustainable city region. I'll stop there.
Great, thank you very much, Kevin. I can see that we have certainly a question for you around how, I mean, both universities have established international networks and footprints, and have you got any thoughts around how we might be able to help SMEs leverage those relationships? That's an interesting question.
Sorry, Alex, could you say that again, please?
Yeah, so certainly. So the question is, both Sheffield Universities have established international networks come footprints. How might SMEs in the city region leverage those relationships?
Leverage the relationships between who? Sorry, Alex. I was trying to work out how I can close this this presentation.
Fair enough. So I think the essence of the question is, both universities work internationally already, and given that one of the things that you've just talked about was around the risk of international markets and how we export more, how might we help the business base connect to those international markets?
Okay, thanks, and I'm very sorry for not listening carefully enough earlier on. So I've got one specific idea on that was mentioned to me by some colleagues yesterday. This university has 5 international offices around the world. We've got one in China, in India, in Pakistan, in Malaysia, and in Singapore. Those offices are currently focused only on developing the business of international students coming to the UK and partnerships with colleges and other institutions overseas. It would be, I think it would be an interesting proposition to look at repurposing those to help create soft landing zones for Sheffield City region companies that are interested in trading in those markets and need support to do so. At the moment, it can be quite a minefield going to agents, going into countries that you're not aware of. Now, there is support from Sheffield City region institutions, of course there is, but I do think there's more that universities can do there. Also, I do think that there's maybe ways that we can leverage our relationships with universities and colleges and other institutions overseas to help make connections for businesses that do want to engage with academic institutions over in those markets. And it'll be exactly the same for the other university in Sheffield, with lots of international activity, particularly both universities very strong in China and Hong Kong. Obviously, I'm not making any promises on behalf of the other university.
Okay, thank you very much. I can see there's a few comments coming in around sort of strategic partnerships and that kind of thing. I know we've had another question from Kerry that we will pick up. and respond to afterwards. Unfortunately, time is against us, but thank you very much, Kevin. That was really good and quite provocative. So thank you very much for your talk.
Thanks.
So our final presenter today is Pete Mylon, who looks after the Impact Scheme and the iForge, who I think is going to give us a virtual tour, which will be an interesting experience for all of us, I think. Pete, are you there?
I am, yeah. Can you hear me?
I am. Great, thank you. I will hand straight over.
Fantastic, thanks. Right, let's have a go at sharing this presentation. Okay, can we all see that?
Yep, that's that.
Great. Oh, I've made the classic error of not ticking the little share audio thing, haven't I? Oh, let me try that again. One thing that you have to remember to do. Right, up if there's still no sound.
Welcome to the university's Diamond Building.
Is that better?
This is where we house all of our engineering labs. As you come in on the first floor, the first thing that you see on the left is the iForge makerspace. So we'll head inside and have a look. As you come through the entrance, the first thing that you see here is the social area. Not something you usually see in a workshop, but a really important place where teams get together and ideas develop. You can see some nice little bits that people have made there. I'll give you a brief run through of some of the equipment we've got here. So laser cutting is a really popular activity, really simple to use. We've got downdraft benches here, which means that we can do all sorts of dust producing, cutting and drilling and things like that. You can see some of our materials supply over here. We have a very good relationship with RS, and they provide us with all of the components that students need, and they'll come and replace them when they need replacing. We've got traditional kind of tools like saws and bench drills. We've got a hot tools working area there. We've got a metrology station. So there's a real mix of traditional and modern equipment in here. We've got a CNC milling machine, which gets used quite extensively by our competition teams building things like planes and cars. We've got a vacuum former. As we come around the corner, we've got our electronics station where you can do things like Arduino prototyping, Raspberry Pis and so on. We've got a CNC router. You know, our student team get extensive training on those from our experienced technicians. This is probably my favourite piece of equipment, the water jet cutter, where you can cut up to inch thick steel. And here we have a little So this was one we ran with Siemens, but we also run an assistive technology hackathon called Accessible, working with disabled people to solve their everyday problems. So hopefully that's given you a bit of an idea of the kind of things that we do in the iForge.
Okay, so what I'm going to do now is just give you a brief introduction to the impact project scheme. Now that hopefully you've got some understanding of what the iForge is, then you'll see how it might be able to benefit SMEs and create partnerships with students. It's not doing anything currently. Oh. There we go. Okay, so that's given you a bit of a taster. I've got a few slides, but if you want to kind of fire questions at me as well, then I'm happy to answer those. So the idea of the impact project is to link up students with SMEs. So we often talk about this generation of students being digital natives. So they know what they're doing with technology, but they lack experience of solving engineering problems. And on the flip side, some SMEs have an awful lot of industry experience of solving problems in different ways, but haven't yet capitalized on the digital revolution. And so one of the companies we worked with is a local instrument manufacturer, and they talked about this idea of little mesters, this kind of these Sheffield makers, these craftsmen who are doing a lot of specialist craft and sort of relics of the cutlery trade and things like that. But they might find the digital transition a challenge. And the idea is that they're interacting with students with digital skills can transform their businesses to be Industry 4.0 ready. So how can the iForge help? So as you've seen, the iForge is a student-run space. It gives the students 24/7 access to advanced technology, which may not be available for cost reasons to SMEs. It also attracts the kind of students who are practical, motivated problem solvers. The students are using advanced software, so we can do things like generative design and simulation and CAD/CAM, virtual and augmented reality and 3D scanning and modeling, and those things can help to augment your businesses. You've seen most of the prototyping tools we've got, so things like waterjet cutting and CNC and 3D printing, but also electronics and other sides of it. So the basic idea is that the project would be somewhere between 40 and 100 hours, but that's kind of flexible depending on the project needs. The students are going to be paid for their work, so it's not an internship, it's not a work shadowing thing. The students are more like consultants. And by paying them, that makes them feel valued and understand the nature of the work as more than just that work experience. There are matched funding grants available from partners of the university. Obviously, in the current climate, we'll have to sort of have discussions with people about how it might work, but hopefully the financial side of things shouldn't be a reason to put people off. It can be in groups as well. We often find that it works better doing that. Students kind of bounce off each other and get more ideas that way, as you saw with the social space in the iForge. Students can work alongside their studies or do it over the summer. So rather than working in Sainsbury's, they could be doing something that's actually building up their work experience as well as supporting them financially a bit. And there's a lot of support from academics like me and from technical experts as well, who can help them depending on what the subject area of the project is. And students, yeah.
Sorry, can I just jump in? I will confess to not knowing how this system works very well, but somebody put their hand up to ask a question. I can't work out how to find it now. Would that person be prepared to unmic themselves and not ask a question?
Yep.
Oh, Kerry.
Kerry's putting her hand up. Kerry, you should be able to unmute yourself if you press your microphone. She's not there. Well, I'm waiting for Kerry to unmute herself. Yeah, so the idea was then recruit students through the iForge. You can see there's a big screen up there where we'll be able to advertise your project, and so all the hundreds of students coming in and out will see them. And we also have the Sheffield Engineering Leadership Academy, which is a really good place to get some of the great students involved.
Okay. So I'm just keeping an eye on time here slightly. We're sort of running in danger of running over. Does anybody have any specific questions for Pete at this point? Okay. I have to give it a minute for people to type if they need to, depending on how fast people can type. But okay, given that people are starting to put thank you comments in, I think if that's okay with you, Pete, have you got anything else left that you wanted to share?
No, I think we've probably just about covered it there. Yeah, if you want to find out any more, you can email me, or you can go and check out the iForge website, or look me up on Twitter.
Okay, thank you very much to Pete, and thank you very much to all of our presenters today. All three of them have been really interesting. It's my job to sort of wrap things up. This session will be open if people want to sort of chatting to each other off on the side and want to talk a bit further. That's absolutely fine by us. There will be some polling questions which will come up shortly around the event and around how we can work together further going forwards. We are planning on doing more MD's Club events. I hope you're glad to hear. We are looking at September for the next one. It will definitely have an online component to it. The actual topic itself has yet to be completely confirmed because we're waiting to see how much lockdown has eased or not eased by that point. So I think there's two things left for me to say, which is thanks very much for everybody for attending and for your time this afternoon, and please answer the questions and ask us further questions. And thank you very much to the teams from both universities, to Eleanor, her colleagues, and Sally, and from my side of things for helping put all this together. It's a challenging thing, so thank you very much. Wayne, do you want to ask a question? No? Okay. That's great. Well, thank you all very much. I will stop talking at this point, but have a great holiday weekend, I suppose, would be the polite thing to say at this point. Thank you.